Judges, chapters 18 and 19. In those days there was no king in Israel, and in those days the tribe of Dan sought for itself an inheritance to inhabit, because no inheritance had fallen to it until that day in the midst of the tribes of the children of Israel. And the sons of Dan sent from their families 5 men of valor, from Sariah and from Eshtaol, to spy out the land and to search it. And they said to them, Go and search out the land. And they came as far as the mount of Ephraim, and the house of Micaias, and they lodged there, in the house of Micaias. And they recognized the voice of the young man the Levite, and turned in thither, and said to him, Who brought thee in hither? And what doest thou in this place? And what hast thou here? And he said to them, Thus and thus did Micaias to me, and he hired me, and I became his priest. And they said to him, Inquire now of God, and we shall know whether our way will prosper, on which we are going. And the priest said to them, Go in peace. Your way in which ye go is before the Lord. And the 5 men went on, and came to Lystra, and they saw the people in the midst of it dwelling securely, at ease, as is the manner of the Sidonians. And there is no one perverting or shaming a matter in the land, no heir extorting treasures, and they are far from the Sidonians, and they have no intercourse with anyone. And the 5 men came to their brethren to Sariah and to Eshtaol, and said to their brethren, Why sit ye here idle? And they said, Arise, and let us go up against them, for we have seen the land, and behold, it is very good. Yet ye are still. Delay not to go and enter in to possess the land. And whensoever ye shall go, ye shall come in upon a people secure, and the land is extensive, for God has given it into your hand, a place where there is no want of anything that the earth affords. And there departed thence of the families of Dan from Sariah and from Eshtaol 600 men, girded with weapons of war, and they went up and encamped in Kiriath-jearim in Judah. Therefore it was called in that place the camp of Dan until this day. Behold, it is behind Kiriath-jearim. And they went on thence to the mount of Ephraim, and came to the house of Micaias. And the 5 men who went to spy out the land of Lystra answered, and said to their brethren, Ye know that there is in this place an ephod, and a teraphim, and a graven and a molten image. And now consider what ye shall do. And they turned aside there, and went into the house of the young man the Levite, even into the house of Micaias, and asked him how he was. And the 600 men of the sons of Dan, who were girded with their weapons of war, stood by the door of the gate. And the 5 men who went to spy out the land went up, and entered into the house of Micaias, and the priest stood. And they took the graven image, and the ephod, and the teraphim, and the molten image. And the priest said to them, What are ye doing? And they said unto him, Be silent, lay thine hand upon thy mouth, and come with us, and be to us a father and a priest. Is it better for thee to be a priest of the house of one man, or to be the priest of a tribe and a house for a family of Israel? And the heart of the priest was glad, and he took the ephod, and the teraphim, and the graven image, and the molten image, and went in the midst of the people. So they turned and departed, and put their children and their property and their baggage before them. They went some distance from the house of Micaias, and behold, Micaias and the men in the house near Micaias' house cried out and overtook the children of Dan. And the children of Dan turned their face, and said to Micaias, What is the matter with thee that thou hast cried out? And Micaias said, Because ye have taken my graven image which I made, and my priest, and are gone. And what have I remaining? What is that ye say to me? Why criest thou? And the children of Dan said to him, Let not thy voice be heard with us, lest angry man run upon thee, and take away thy life, and the lives of thy house. And the children of Dan went their way, and Micaias saw that they were stronger than himself, and he returned to his house. And the children of Dan took what Micaias had made, and the priest that he had, and they came to Lystra, to a people quiet and secure, and they smote them with the edge of the sword, and burnt the city with fire. There was no deliverer, because the city is far from the Sidonians, and they have no intercourse with men, and it is in the valley of the house of Rahab. And they built the city, and dwelt in it. And they called the name of the city Dan, after the name of Dan their father, who was born to Israel. And the name of the city was Ulameus before. And the children of Dan set up the graven image for themselves. And Jonathan, the son of Gershon, son of Manasseh, he and his sons were priests of the tribe of Dan, till the time of the carrying away of the nation. And they set up for themselves the graven image which Micaias made, all the days that the house of God was in Salem. And it was so in those days that there was no king in Israel. There was a Levite sojourning in the sides of Mount Ephraim, and he took to himself a concubine from Bethlehem, Judah. And his concubine departed from him, and went away from him, to the house of her father to Bethlehem Judah, and she was there 4 months. And her husband rose up and went after her to speak kindly to her, to recover her to himself. And he had his young man with him and a pair of asses, and she brought him into the house of her father, and the father of the damsel saw him, and was well pleased to meet him. And his father-in-law, the father of the damsel, constrained him, and he stayed with him for 3 days. And they ate and drank, and lodged there. And it came to pass on the 4th day that they rose early, and he stood up to depart. And the father of the damsel said to the son-in-law, Strengthen thy heart with a morsel of bread, and afterward ye shall go. So they two sat down together, and ate and drank. And the father of the damsel said to her husband, Tarry now the night, and let thy heart be merry. And the man rose up to depart, but his father-in-law constrained him, and he stayed and lodged there. And he rose early in the morning of the 5th day to depart. And the father of the damsel said, Strengthen now thine heart, and quit thyself as a soldier till the day decline. And the two ate. And the man rose up to depart, he and his concubine, and his young man. But his father-in-law, the father of the damsel, said to him, Behold now, the day has declined toward evening. Lodge here, and let thy heart rejoice, and ye shall rise early tomorrow for your journey, and thou shalt go to thy habitation. But the man would not lodge there, but he arose and departed, and came to the part opposite Jebus, this is Jerusalem. And there was with him a pair of asses saddled, and his concubine was with him. And they came as far as Jebus, and the day had far advanced. And the young man said to his master, Come, I pray thee, and let us turn aside to the city of the Jebusites, and let us lodge in it. And his master said to him, We will not turn aside to a strange city, where there is not one of the children of Israel, but we will pass on as far as Gibeah. And he said to his young man, Come, and let us draw nigh to one of the places, and we will lodge in Gibeah or in Ramah. And they passed by and went on, and the sun went down upon them near to Gibeah, which is in Benjamin. And they turned aside thence to go into the lodge of Gibeah. And they went in, and sat down in the street of the city, and there was no one who conducted them into a house to lodge. And behold, an old man came out of the field from his work in the evening, and the man was of Mount Ephraim. And he sojourned in Gibeah, and the men of the place were sons of Benjamin. And he lifted up his eyes, and saw a traveler in the street of the city. And the old man said to him, Whither goest thou, and whence comest thou? And he said to him, We are passing by from Bethlehem, Judah, to the sides of Mount Ephraim. I am from thence, and I went as far as Bethlehem, Judah, and I am going home, and there is no man to take me into his house. Yet is there straw and food for our asses, and bread and wine for me and my handmaid, and the young man with thy servant. There is no want of anything. And the old man said, Peace be to thee, only be every want of thine upon me, only do thou by no means lodge in the street. And he brought him into his house, and made room for his asses, and they washed their feet, and ate and drank. And they were comforting their heart, when, behold, the men of the city, sons of transgressors, compassed the house, knocking at the door. And they spoke to the old man, the owner of the house, saying, Bring out the man who came into thy house, that we may know him. And the master of the house came out to them, and said, Nay, brethren, do not ye wrong. I pray you, after this man has come into my house, do not ye this folly. Behold, my daughter, a virgin, and the man's concubine. I will bring them out, and humble ye them, and do to them that which is good in your eyes. But to this man do not this folly. But the men would not consent to hearken to him. So the man laid hold of his concubine, and brought her out to them. And they knew her, and abused her all night till the morning, and let her go when the morning dawned. And the woman came toward morning, and fell down at the door of the house where her husband was, until it was light. And her husband rose up in the morning, and opened the doors of the house, and went forth to go on his journey. And behold, the woman his concubine had fallen down by the doors of the house, and her hands were on the threshold. And he said to her, Rise, and let us go. And she answered not, for she was dead. And he took her upon his ass, and went to his place. And he took his sword, and laid hold of his concubine, and divided her into 12 parts, and sent to every coast of Israel. And it was so, that everyone who saw it said, Such a day as this has not happened, nor has been seen from the day of the going up of the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt until this day. Take ye counsel concerning it, and speak. Psalm 77. 78 in Hebrew, verses 1 through 17. A psalm of instruction for Asaph. Give heed, O my people, to my law. Incline your ear to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter dark sayings which have been from the beginning, all which we have heard and known, and our fathers have declared to us. They were not hid from their children to a second generation. The fathers declaring the praises of the Lord, and his mighty acts, and his wonders which he wrought. And he raised up a testimony in Jacob, and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers to make it known to their children, that another generation might know, even the sons which should be born, and they should arise and declare them to their children, that they might set their hope on God, and not forget the works of God, but diligently seek his commandments, that they should not be as their fathers, a perverse and provoking generation, a generation which set not its heart aright, and its spirit was not steadfast with God. The children of Ephraim, bending and shooting with the bow, turned back in the day of battle. They kept not the covenant of God, and would not walk in his law. And they forgot his benefits, and his miracles which he had showed them, the miracles which he had wrought before their fathers, in the land of Egypt, in the plain of Tanis. He clave the sea, and led them through. He made the waters to stand as in a bottle, and he guided them with a cloud by day, and all the night with a light of fire. He clave a rock in the wilderness, and made them drink as in a great deep. And he brought water out of the rock, and caused waters to flow down as rivers. And they sinned yet more against him. They provoked the Most High in the wilderness. Proverbs chapter 16, verses 10 through 14. There is an oracle upon the lips of a king, and his mouth shall not err in judgment. The poise of the balance is righteousness with the Lord, and his works are righteous measures. An evildoer is an abomination to a king, for the throne of rule is established by righteousness. Righteous lips are acceptable to a king, and he loves right words. The anger of a king is a messenger of death, but a wise man will pacify him. The Holy Gospel according to St. Luke, chapter 6, verses 1 through 26. And it came to pass on the second Sabbath after the first, that he went through the cornfields. His disciples plucked the ears of corn, and did eat, rubbing them in their hands. And certain of the Pharisees said unto them, Why do ye that which is not lawful to do on the Sabbath days? And Jesus answering them said, Have ye not read so much as this, what David did when himself was a-hungered, and they which were with him, how he went into the house of God, and did take and eat of the showbread, and gave also to them that were with him, which is not lawful to eat but for the priests alone? And he said unto them, That the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. And it came to pass also on another Sabbath, that he entered into the synagogue, and taught. And there was a man whose right hand was withered. And the scribes and Pharisees watched him, whether he would heal on the Sabbath day, that they might find an accusation against him. But he knew their thoughts, and said to the man which had withered hand, Rise up, and stand forth in the midst. And he arose and stood forth. Then said Jesus unto them, I will ask you one thing. Is it lawful on the Sabbath days to do good, or to do evil, to save life, or to destroy it? And looking round about on them all, he said unto the man, Stretch forth thy hand. And he did so, and his hand was restored as whole as the other. And they were filled with madness, and communed one with another what they might do to Jesus. And it came to pass in those days, that he went out into a mountain to pray, and continued all night in prayer to God. And when it was day, he called unto him his disciples, and of them he chose 12, whom he also named apostles: Simon, whom he also named Peter, and Andrew his brother, James and John, Philip and Bartholomew, Matthew and Thomas, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon, called Zelotes, and Judas the brother of James, and Judas Iscariot, which was also the traitor. And he came down with them, and stood in the plain, in the company of his disciples, and a great multitude of people out of all Judea and Jerusalem, and from the sea coast of Tyre and Sidon, which came to hear him, and to be healed of their diseases. And they that were vexed with unclean spirits, and they were healed. And the whole multitude sought to touch him, for there went virtue out of him, and he healed them all. And he lifted up his eyes on his disciples, and said, Blessed be ye poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are ye that hunger now, for ye shall be filled. Blessed are ye that weep now, for ye shall laugh. Blessed are ye when men shall hate you, and when they shall separate you from their company, and shall reproach you, and cast out your name as evil, for the Son of Man's sake. Rejoice ye in that day, and leap for joy, for behold, your reward is great in heaven. For in like manner did their fathers unto the prophets. But woe unto you that are rich, for ye have received your consolation. Woe unto you that are full, for ye shall hunger. Woe unto you that laugh now, for ye shall mourn and weep. Woe unto you, when all men shall speak well of you, for so did their fathers to the false prophets.